What's up, everyone? Welcome to Around the ACL. Michelle Thompson here with Trey Ryder and Wally Canine Castler. And we are coming off of Open number 9 in Reno, Nevada. A really cool open for me specifically because I got to have all my local players there. So it was really fun, and I can't wait to talk about how much they loved it because it's cool to see people's experience of an ACL Open that have never done anything like that. So all positive from them. We're going to get into our current standings, which are always going to be a little wonky right here during the open start, but it is still interesting to look at where people are shaking up, as well as getting into properly rated, underrated, or overrated. And then we got more of your comments to get through, so we're excited to get to those about what's going on with the future of Cornhole. But first of all, Wally, I know you were there in Reno, Nevada, so did you have a good trip home? Everything shake out okay for you?
Yeah, left an unexpected cold. For me, go west, warm. That's how my brain works. I'm terrible at geography.
We went west and up.
I was thinking like Nevada. Ooh, Vegas, warm. Let's go. And luckily, I decided to look at the forecast before I packed because I had plans to just take a carry-on and all shorts. So, I would have dropped the ball there, but came back and it's 8 degrees, feels like -10 again, and woke up this morning to a bunch of snow. So give you a heads up, if the internet cuts out, there's nothing I can do. I got a 80-foot Ethernet cord ran across the floor to try and get us something here. It's weird because I have like 900 download and 1.3 upload. So there's a big gap there.
Big gap.
Spectrum's been sending out texts like crazy with all the outages. But yeah, it was a lot of fun out there. I am glad to be back home. There's a few things that I learned as a player this time. So I want to share that with you guys. But before I do that, I want to give a credit to Matt Wilson and Meesh, because I honestly say without starting that clinic, I would not have done this well this weekend, because my thought process kind of changed as far as pushing into the pile, creating messier situations. For the most part, myself and Jacob Coleman, we played a muddy game, and we forced situations, difficult shots out of our opponents, where normally I'm kind of either sneaking around or trying to go up top with the airmail. And then the one thing that I wish I would have done more of was the physical training part, because whenever we got to Sunday, I was shot. My back was done. My knee was done. My elbow was done. Everything is sore. And I really underestimated how much 3 days of cornhole can wear on me over those long tournaments. So that's something you definitely have to take into consideration if you're planning on traveling in the future for tournaments. And then the other thing is make sure you check the reviews on the Airbnb and make sure you have a comfortable bed to sleep in and hot water to take showers, because those were a couple of things that I was lacking, and they definitely played a factor as far as the blind draw and the singles went. But Saturday was great. It was pretty cool just to walk around and mingle. I had a good time. We got to see some great cornhole, and overall it's fun. But yeah, glad to be back home. Glad to be back in the rhythm of things.
See, everybody hated my push-ups, my planks, and my squats that I made them do every other day. But look, it pays off if you do them. You build some endurance. Even though they hated me the whole time. Trey, did you get to watch any from home? I know you hopped on one of the feeds at some point, but how much did you get to watch?
Yeah. I get to watch a good bit, which was cool. So we're kind of enjoying the last couple, and I know you guys have been road warriors, but as we get into the signatures, like the signatures are kind of a different beast, but kind of enjoying the last little bit of before we really ramp out into these extra long weekends, these big events. It's gonna be fun. So yeah, I got to watch some from home, and my wife is also a Valentine's Day baby, so I get the double whammy of I have to. People always say, "Oh, you're lucky. You get Valentine's Day and the birthday. You can just knock it out all in once." And I'm like, well, yes, that's true, but it also means that you better deliver, because if you don't deliver on that day, then you're in trouble. So I spent a good weekend doing that and watching some cornhole. So a good one on my end.
Yeah, no Disney?
No Disney. I got no Disney this time, but got her this nice organizational calendar she's been begging for months. So she's She's got a nice big old calendar, a digital calendar with a touchscreen in the kitchen now that she's
that's fancy.
on my phone when I don't do the meal prep or I don't do the chores. So it's going to be trouble for me.
You just reminded me that Nick just skipped over Valentine's Day because I was working. He owes me. Nick, when you listen to this, I will be expecting my flowers. All right, let's get into open number 9 at Reno, Nevada. In singles, we had Mark Richards, but he was able to get the sweep, take doubles as well with Tony Smith, and of course, become our number 1 title winner. So lots to talk about there. In women's singles, Elizabeth Tennyson was able to get singles and doubles with Sam Finley. Sam Finley, another impressive performance on her singles day, making it deep into the bracket. Seniors, I thought Steve Schrader was going to do the same and get the sweep. I was like, come on, Steve. But nope, senior doubles, Brad Kraft and Mike Clayton come out and get the win there. And in singles for juniors, Zach Aiken, surprise, surprise, and junior doubles, Ethan Farias and Adrian Brunson. But it should be mentioned that Zach Aiken and Tony Forbes were right there at number 2. So Zach Aiken, obviously, towards the end of singles as well. So impressive for Zach on another weekend. And I thought for sure he was going to get a back-to-back win. But Mark was doing his Mark things. Trey, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. From my perspective, we first of all, I think the perfect person to talk about after this incredible weekend, right, is of course Trey Birchfield, right? Because Trey Birchfield, after all of those years of Matt Guy sitting at number 1 on the all-time title list, when Trey Birchfield won it, we're like, I mean, there were some people, and I'm not speculating my personal opinion or anybody's personal opinion, but Trey Birchfield himself, I think I'm the greatest of all time. I'm number 1 in titles. I have the most world championships. It is what it is, right? And he can't even sit on that for 8 months. And then Mark Richards says, yoink, I'll take that away from you.
Yeah.
So I found that to be very interesting. And I'm interested to see Trey Birchfield's response as we get into the signatures, right? Now, the one thing that Trey Birchfield is always going to have right now, at least in the short term, and really probably for for a while, is world championships. That's going to be his thing right now. I mean, as this goes, I love the title race conversation because it gives people like us something to debate, right? And that is always the most fun thing for me, just debating things that nobody has the answer to, right? It's fun. And in this instance, we're going to have to debate between Matt Guy, who's by far got the longevity, right? We're talking about someone that's been in the game longer than most of these guys. Some of these guys have been alive. He's been playing cornhole type of thing. I mean, Matt Guy was throwing cornhole bags before Zach Aiken was born. I can tell you that right now.
Guaranteed.
And so you got Matt Guy. Then you have Trey Birchfield, who is this blend of all-time titles, somewhat longevity, right? But also the world championships. And now you have this new guy, Mark Richards, where you could say Mark doesn't have the longevity, but he does have, right, the lead in all-time titles now. In the past 4 years, he's been the most dominant player in the world. The numbers say that. And then you go and throw in someone like Jamie Graham, who's just waiting in the wings for everybody to forget about him. I mean, who knows? We may have Jamie Graham number 1 in this title race by the end of the season. We just don't know how that plays out. So for me, I think this is what makes it so exciting. And I don't, when I call it a titles race, I understand that it's actually not a race right now. It is a marathon because these guys are going to be playing forever. But for me, it gives me something to see how these guys battle back and forth and how they continue to add titles and respond to one another. Because I think this is going to be something for years to come that we see, these guys go into battle and trying to earn titles. And I'm just genuinely interested to see where it goes. So that's where I kind of start on my thoughts. Mark Richards was an incredible player this weekend. And I saw him throw more airmails that we didn't expect him to throw than in any tournament. And I remember watching one airmail against Zach Aiken. Zach Aiken puts up a level 1 block, and you're like, he might be able to get around it. And I think either you or Jake might have actually said, Meesh, like, oh, is he going to roll here, cut around? Oh, no, he's going airmail. And he just hit that. And I remember sitting on my couch watching that going, That's the Mark Richards that won the world championship in singles. That guy right there. Now there were some instances he used that roll bag. He was really, really good. But when in doubt, he was throwing the airmail. And that to me is the difference between him being just a good player, number 46 in the world last year, to a world champion. He is scary right now. I look at Mark Richards and Tony Smith. I was pulling some statistics. I kind of laugh, we got to give Jake a hard time, right? After saying they need to get their heads out of the asses. Well, guess what? They did, right? I was looking back at their run, and I just said to myself, this team is scary, because if I looked at neither one of them was particularly unbeatable all day, but what they were was complimentary. I saw one game. Mark Richards throws a high 9. Tony Smith throws an 11-2. Next game, Mark Richards throws a 10-9. Tony Smith throws a 10 flat, right? They were bouncing back and forth. When one needed to be great, they were great. When the other one needed the other one to be great, they were bouncing back and forth. And their average points allowed per game was 15, which tells me they were also winning close games. It wasn't that they were just blowing everybody out of the water. The reason I think that's scary is because if you look at the path for this team, we know that when they get rolling, if they're both really good, they're not going to lose. But now they've shown that they don't even need to be individually the best player in the tournament in order to win as a team, and they're doing it right before the signatures start. So Jake is trembling in his boots right now, in my opinion, as they get ready to go. Last thing for me, I know I'm rambling, but Zach Aiken, been really, really cool and really special to watch his evolution from Rock Hill, where I am now, to see where he is here. I'll tell you what, though, Zach Aiken, big tournament player. He doesn't play this well in Rock Hill. He'll go on runs and he'll have good PPRs, but when he gets towards the end, sometimes it just doesn't finish for him. He's playing much better at these big events than he does, I even think, at the localized level. And I think that speaks to his ability to focus when the biggest stakes are on the line. And that's something that I very rarely see in kids, in the 12 to 16 range. So kudos to Zakin. I think he's my lead candidate for Rookie of the Year now. I think he has passed Logan Dupler. He has earned that and will be at the top of the ballot, at least at the entry-level part of the signature season.
Wally?
Yeah, so talking about the title race, we got two different people doing it in two different ways. Mark is really doing it in the singles side of things. He has 13 singles titles, at the top of the list. Trey, on the other hand, has 15 doubles titles, so he's at the top of the list there. So whenever you're weighing the two and comparing, like Trey is saying, where it really doesn't matter, it's just great. It's fun to watch. You talk about LeBron and Michael Jordan, you can debate all day long, no matter what you want to do, instead of just enjoying it. And I think that's what we need to do, is just enjoy this for what it is. It's great cornhole coming out of all these guys. Tony Smith, he looks like he's where he needs to be. And I think a big part of that is because what we saw from Mark and Tony last year is that they were trying to throw the same bag. I'm going to throw this bag in singles. We're going to throw it together in doubles. This year, it's a little bit different. Mark is like, I'm going to do my thing in singles. You do your thing in singles, and then we come together and do it in doubles. And I think that provides a little bit more of a relaxed environment when they get on the boards, and they had the success this weekend. And it's one of these things where you're like, I know you're good. We could both adjust. And like Trey's talking about, they can win close games just based off of their skill alone. Let the boards and the bags do what they want to do. I do want to touch base on Zach Aiken for a little bit, another lucky bag thrower. So shout out to Lucky. They had a great weekend. I'm a little concerned about his mental part right now, because before he went and played Mark, he said to me, he beat Gavin in a close game. It was a tough game, back and forth, hit a lot of shots. And instead of him being excited to go play in the finals, he says, I swear I better not get another second place. 4 second places in a row. And I'm like, or back-to-back open titles. Like, you know what I mean? So
that's interesting.
Yeah, so whenever I was coaching my daughter's teams, I said, you guys have to learn. We went undefeated for a while and we lost, and they were all upset. And I said, you have to learn how to lose before you can learn how to win. And if you can't just take a loss, brush it off, and move on and come back for the next one, you're going to have a hard time doing it. So I do want to see Zach kind of enjoy 4 second-place finishes. I'm not sure what the payouts were, but, I mean, he's up there as far as having one of the most successful weekends. So I want him to enjoy that a little bit more. And then last thing I want to touch base on is I love where the women's division is at right now. It's always been Cheyenne Bubenheim, no questions asked. And now as we get ready for the signature series, Sam Finley, strong run in singles. Elizabeth Tennyson starting to find that she's up there all the time, whether she's thrown with Sam Finley or Elizabeth Tennyson, or Sarah Cassidy. We still got Kaylee Hunter, Sarah Cassidy, Caitlin Owlhouse now up there. Owlshouse. I always say her name wrong. She yelled at me twice. But I love where the women's division is headed as we get ready for the signature series.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on that. Going into our current standings, like I said, these are going to be a little strange for the moment just because we only have our open points, but we'll get into the signature points in April. But as it stands now, Devin Harbaugh, I'll just go through the order of singles. Devin Harbaugh, Jackson Gore, Mark Richards, Jacob Trzynski, Sammy Soto, Ethan Walker, Zach Aiken, Ryan Trader, Matt Guy, Eric Davis, JBJ, Logan Chamberlain, Bryce Forbes, and Gabriel Clausen. I'll tell you what I see. I see a lot of kids, and I see a lot of Texas.
And Mark Richards.
So, quick thoughts on singles there, Trey.
Yeah, on the single side of things, I think there's a lot of people that we expected, but I also think there's some people in here that once the signatures ramp back up, they're ready to go. So just to refresh everybody, on what these standings are. So pro standings for players this year now count your 4 best signatures of the possible 6 that we'll have in the spring, but it also counts your 2 best opens. So we have a ton of people at number 1 right now, right? You have 8 people tied for number 1, and that's because the 8 people have won at least 2 of their have at least 2 singles brackets at open. So they've maxed out their points. So it's really just about getting close to that perfect score of 800 or 400 right now, and then letting the signatures be the real separating factor for us, a lot of these great players. So even if you see some people that may be top 20, top 30, as long as when they're within striking distance, they're going to come close. But as you said, it is a lot of these young players, and I would say a lot of these open travelers, right? People that are consistently going to every single one of these events, it increases their chances of getting those max points, right? Someone like a Jeremiah Ellis isn't on this list, right? But I expect Jeremiah Ellis to be on this list come the 3rd signature event, right? We've started to rack up these level of points. So I do think it's interesting that I also see Matt Guy on this list. And, people often forget about how good Matt Guy still is. He'll be an underdog all season. Probably the biggest underdog of his career will be this coming season. And I think that's going to be music to his ears.
Wally?
Yeah, you talked about the travelers, the people that are showing up for these tournaments, some names that are starting to make a little bit of noise in the field, players like Nico Morales, Landon Crabtree, they're out there. They were throwing pretty well this weekend. The Texas guys you talked about, Gavin Cano, Logan Chamberlain, JBJ, they're at all these events. I think they're trying to go to every single one. They want those Stevies at the end of the year, but they are starting to perform also. So kind of keep an eye on the way that the brackets are going to shake out for the signature series. You might not think it's important now because of the standings, but you don't want to come across one of these guys as your first round matchup and then go over to the loser side and then get stuck having to play somebody who, doesn't deserve to be on the loser side of the bracket. Next thing you know, you're going 0-2. We saw this happen the last couple of years. You always have these shocking players too. I didn't expect Bryce Forbes or Gabriel Clausen to be on there on this list. You talked about the youth playing a huge factor. Some players that did really, really well. Asher Plummer, Candler Bagg, Gio Mora. They had a pretty good run this last weekend as well. So we start looking at these brackets and they start shaping up. People are getting hot at the right time, and just because they're on the loser side, you might find yourself getting caught. So it's going to be interesting when the signature series comes out of who plays who.
Moving into doubles, Sammy Soto, Gavin Cano, Jordan Power, Cheyenne Bubenheim, Ryan Wiedenfield, Ryan Smith, JBJ and Logan Chamberlain, Jamie Graham, Jacob Trzynski, Mark Richards, Tony Smith, Philip Lopez Jr., Stephen Bernasette, Quinn Reeves, Austin Waskow, Ethan Walker, Cody Henderson, and Gabriel Clausen and Hayden Gonzalez. I'll start with you, Wally, on doubles.
Yeah, doubles is getting pretty chalk, actually. So this is kind of how the names that we thought would be up there. Again, we're missing the Ellis and the Harbaugh pairing, but we really haven't seen them, I think, only twice this year, and we're, 9 opens in. So once we get into the season, Jeremiah is saving up his PTO to make sure that he can play in all these signature events. I see Facebook just blasting him, one-hit wonder, all this. Wonder what's going to –
he's washed.
Yeah, he's washed. He's done. I mean, meanwhile, he's back home winning every tournament he plays in and having a good time. But, yeah, doubles I think is pretty chalk. I expected big things out of Sammy Soto and Gavin Cano this year. Obviously, Jordan Power and Cheyenne Bubenheim, they know they're not on my top 25 list. If you haven't heard Jordan yell at me before, it's going to continue. Ryan Wiedenfeld and Ryan Smith being up there in the top 3, though, that's the one that's kind of interesting to me because I always expect them to do good, but I don't think I've really seen their true potential this year. And I'm waiting for them to get that dub. I feel like they should have had 2 championships by now because they travel a lot. So even though it's 3rd place, I'm kind of disappointed with that.
Trey?
Yeah, I think there's some interesting points here that I look at doubles, and yeah, I think there's only one team that's like a glaring miss, and we know who that is with Ellis and Harbaugh, but everybody else, like, it feels like this feels kind of like the right group, but we don't know what the order is yet. So again, I just really like how this has set the stage. And if anything, what the Opens have provided is some decent seeding, right? How many times have we talked into going to the first national in previous years where you got screwed on the seeding of the first national and then you couldn't recover, right? You had a brutal first 2 games. You went 0-2. Then the next event you were a bottom seed. And the next event you were a bottom seed again. You had to claw your way. That's not going to be the case this year. This truly is going to be a group, that is going to be somewhat seeded pretty well across the entire tournament for the first one, and they can continue to build towards it. So I think, if anything, I see these standings and I just say to myself, the anticipation is officially building.
Moving into underrated, overrated, or properly rated. So as we talked about, these are open standings, but do we think this is a proper rating for when we get into the Signature Series? Starting off with David Morse at number 29, Trey.
All right. Hot take. Properly rated.
Okay.
I think Dave Morse is one of the most underrated players that we have. Reminds me a lot of, and I'm going back now a couple of years because he hasn't played, or I guess maybe he just didn't play this year. But Jordan Kimbrell. We always talked about Jordan Kimbrell being a guy that was a top 20, top 30 player that nobody ever wanted to run into, but he just never won that big event, right? Morse feels similar to me, right? And so I think Morse is going to have his best season of his career. I think he's going to shock a lot of people. I like a top 3 finish. So I'm going to say like a top 30 finish. So I think he's going to be right at, I think he's going to be right at that 29 mark. I'm going to go properly rated.
Wally?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have a misunderstanding of the scale because I was going to say properly rated, whereas I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's necessarily top 25 material. He has had some good success in brackets, but then when you start getting down to like the final 8 or the final 4 players left on the winner's side, he's unable to crack that egg. So properly rated, I don't know. I felt like it was a little bit less as exciting as Trey's take on it, but yeah, 29 is right where I expect him to be.
Caleb Batson at number 48, Trey.
Can I pass?
Nope.
I have no idea.
I know.
I mean,
it's a weird one.
Who is Caleb Batson? Like, I mean, I'll go overrated. I'll show me. Put me in the show me camp. Put me in the prove it camp. Right now, like, I could probably list off 40, 50 people that right now, no doubt, I could say I believe are better than Caleb Batson right now. If he gets back into it, then obviously that number goes out the window. But right now, I'd put him at 70, 60 if I really had to rank out people. So I guess I'll go overrated. But I don't even know. That's a hard one.
Wally?
I was also going to go the I don't know route, but since Trey kind of stole that, I'm going underrated, actually. Oh. I like what I've seen out of Caleb Batson, and you see the brackets come out. You always want to see How is Caleb Batson doing? How is Alex Hicks doing? Are they back to their form? And the last couple of times that we've seen Caleb Batson in the brackets, he's been doing pretty decent. So I think Caleb Batson could be coming back around to form. And if you're going to ask me who I would take in a one-on-one match between Caleb Batson and David Morse, I'm probably going to go Caleb Batson. So if I'm putting David Morse at 29, I probably put Caleb Batson around top 25.
Trey says no. Trey says no.
Right now, I would take Dave Morse. I'd probably give him points too.
Wow.
I'll take it.
Rude. Okay. Austin Waskow, number 15, Trey.
Slightly overrated. It's not far off. I think Waskow is actually a really, really good player. I think he's got top 20 potential. Right now, 20, 25 is probably where I'd have him landed at. But look, I wouldn't call it a surprise. If he finishes 15th, I'm not going to be blown away or shocked or anything like that. But I think right now, slightly overrated.
Wally?
Same. I have Austin Waskow as one of my 40 players that I have in the top 25 right now. So him being at 15, I think is a pretty good start to the season. He is one of these players that can control a game based off of whether his role is working. He has showed some of the best roles with one bag in front of the hole that I've seen on live feed courts before, going all the way back to Vegas. And I like what I'm seeing out of Austin this year, but I think there's a little bit of overproduction early at the opens when we get into the signatures and the talent level goes up. I think he might drop down a little bit.
Philip Lopez Jr. and Steven Bernasette at number 6.
I'm going to say a little bit overrated. Not by much though. This feels kind of like Waskow similar. Like I think they're a top 15 team. 6? Whew. It's tough for me to say this year that they're going to be better than the 10 people that I think are in my, as Wally would say, the 10 people in my top 5 that I have. I can't do it. So I'll keep them at 13, 14 right now. So overrated.
Wally?
I'm going properly rated. Whenever you look at the doubles teams that are out there right now over the last year, I guess, these guys have done great in brackets. We don't really get to see them much because their timing and their pacing is a little bit too slow for our liking whenever it comes to picking matches to come on the live feeds. But they're always there. They're performing. They're being some of the best players in the name, and they are one of the top 10 teams that actually work as a team. They have the same goal in mind. They don't try and make individual shots. They talk situations through, and they perform. So properly rated right there at 6 for me.
Adrian Brunson and Ethan Farias at number 36.
This one is difficult because when we start thinking about doubles teams, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that get in 35 spots that we're thinking of off the top of our head. I will go overrated. I haven't seen enough consistency from either player. This is a team that ruins people's days, meaning they come in as a decent seed. You know they're good, but then they come in and they beat a bunch of people, but then they come in 4th in their bracket, right? But they sent somebody home that they weren't supposed to beat, type of thing. I don't see the consistency in their game in order to put them at a really high rank, so I'll say overrated.
Wally?
Yeah, I'll go overrated as well. I love what I've seen out of both of them, so I don't want to say overrated as a knock. If anything, hopefully it encourages them a little bit more. I just think that their throwing styles have matched up pretty well from what I've seen against their opponents, and they're able to do things that I don't think they'll be able to do in a pro field. 35 teams ahead of them. I don't really know if I can name 35 teams right now with the way my state of mind is, but I fully expect them to have a decent season, just not that great.
Samantha Finley and Rosie Streaker at 45.
Little bit underrated. I'll say underrated. I think they are about 35 to 40. I really do. They can both go on really good runs, running a lot of bags into the hole, right? That's not obviously going to be a top 10 team, but these ladies can pump out some good PPRs. I'll tell you that right now. So they've been in that range before. I almost went properly rated here, but I'll go slightly underrated.
Wally?
Yeah, underrated for me as well. We've seen in the past Sam Finley and Rosie Streaker have been able to go deep in brackets as a doubles team. We talk about Bernadette and Lopez working together well as a team. Love the chemistry out of Finley and Rosie, and I expect them to get right back into form right at the very first signature. I don't expect them to finish 45 or lower.
Okay. Getting into the future of cornhole, according to you guys, Cornhole Cobbler said, I think the tournament structure is the wrong main event. There should absolutely be tournaments, but I believe a form of teams is where the game needs to go. By creating team events as the main focus, you can put out a draw to watch the event. In the main event, we'll see Tony Smith battling Trey Birchfield. You could use bigger names to build a draw. You could have your big names play each other. This would force the action, and high school and colleges would be able to rank their players according to the match point scale, and everyone plays a role. What do you think, Trey? Going to the teams.
Is Cornhole Cobbler Stacy's burner?
I know. Who hates teams now? I agree. I love teams.
I do love teams. We are figuring out teams in a lot of different ways, right? Because that's why I think it's important for us to use teams at our pro level to kind of give us the way that we want to implement it. And then, bring it out, right? Like right now at all the different college meets that we're putting out there, it has singles, doubles, and teams, right? One thing that I do find that is a comment in there is you use your bigger names to build a draw. And that, I think that's true, but it also, what I found out is that, and this is a long process of getting here, and some people will hear me say this comment and go, well, no, duh. And I'm like, well, I mean, you have to think about the evolution of how we got here. Cornhole, I think it's very hard to find cornhole fans, okay? Because, and again, some people will go, no, duh. No. Listen to what I'm saying for a second here, though. Even if you find someone that is very passionate about cornhole, okay, they then immediately become a fan, and then they find out ways to get plugged in and start playing, and now they are a cornhole player. So almost immediately as we create fans, we turn them and transition them into players. So as we've started thinking through marketing and how we do these events, right, it isn't always just about trying to bring everybody all over the place in to one location so they can watch cornhole. You have to find a way for them to participate as well. So I kind of think that goes 2 and 2 with what you're saying, which is, do we create events that allow people to play and watch? And one of the ways that we can draw them in is by teams. And so I think that is part of our future. It is part of what we're growing towards. We want to make sure that we get the teams format and structure and how we bring people together all right before we run into it.
Okay. Anything to add, Wally?
Yeah, I think that the idea of teams it's like a work in progress. That's probably going to take maybe 3 to 5 years to fine tune it. But one interesting point of that is he went back to individuals, spiking the interest of the teams.
Yep.
So yeah, if you can find a way to, again, grow the fan base and make it pretty exciting. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. The team's format could be pretty interesting if we could start filling seats. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah. Stephen Presti says maybe having all ACL pros assign competitive level players to help them to develop their skills and get them to advanced and get to the upper ranks with more people. I know, Wally, you're always talking about giving the competitive players a stage and things like that. So what do you think about that idea?
I think there's a time and place for it. I think they should have a stage, just not at the expense of the pros. I would rather have the pros focusing on their own games, working on that. Yes, clinics. Meesh, you've tried to have the clinics and stuff like that work out, but I think that there is a development that the players need to focus on themselves. And if you're going to be an up and comer in this game, you're just going to have to take your lumps like everybody else did to get there. I think you learn a lot from losing. I've said this earlier in the live feed or podcast here. You learn a lot from losing, and without that process, it's just not the same.
Yeah, and Trey, you guys have done pros and Joes.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to, again, that is that opportunity that we're talking about. How can we create more things like that in order to make the cornhole player fans, that new combo, that new person that we're marketing towards, come out to our events? Because I think that's a key person. I also think there's, cool things like ACL Academy. I can't believe Meesh didn't use this opportunity to plug ACL Academy. Like, what? I mean, what is going on here?
He was
Self-promotion,
letting us go first. It was coming. He was letting us go first.
It's so funny you should ask that, Stephen. I guess we do have this. Head to academyacl.com. No, I will tell you, though, the ACL Academy members say that the best part of the ACL Academy is being able to interact with the pros and the experts on there. They love it. They love being able to have those conversations. And the way that I designed it, too, this is like after year one, I thought, man, so many of these people did such a good job, our experts. Why would I go and try to find new ones? I'm just going to invite them back on another topic. And so the cool thing about that is that the Academy members are building relationships with these experts. So now when they come back a second year and they teach a different topic, it's like, oh, hey, I remember this person or what, and they have a relationship. So, and they love it. All the experts are like, can't wait to come back. We love our cornhole people. Even the people outside of the cornhole world are loving teaching our cornhole players. So definitely check that out.
So Trey, you got your crystal ball in front of you, right? Let's go 5-10 years down the line here. Do you see pros becoming either coaches or managers or something, or maybe even just trainers in that regard as we start whittling down to like 100 field and then maybe kind of focusing more on the teams aspect? I really enjoyed, I think I was talking to Meesh or Nick, I can't remember. I really enjoyed last year at teams where like Tony Smith, they took a timeout and Tony Smith came out of the crowd. Mm-hmm. And there's like 4 or 5 people gathered around the hole kind of talking about what the shot was. And that's something that we haven't really experienced until last year. But do you think players, if they aren't players, are going to start becoming more specific towards training or coaching or managing?
Yeah, I mean, we've already started going down that path. Head coach of Winthrop, who, we revere as this top collegiate program, has a former pro player as their head coach, right? I just did outreach. There's a school in North Carolina that I won't name that just asked me recommendations for a head coach. Who were the first people that we looked towards? People that have played this game at the highest level. So I think, yes, I think when you get, we talked about the pro field getting a little bit smaller on purpose. I think that is just going to heighten the competitiveness of the people in there and people looking to hire, whether it's, strategy coaches or I don't know. I'm talking about this again. This is a Michelle question. Why am I getting this? Is a Michelle angle here, but a sports psychologist, I think that's has to be part of the scope of how we evolve. Now the pace in which we get there, it's money. It's exactly what it is right now. I mean, every pro, if they had all the money in the world, would be hiring some type of coach or sports psychologist, followed by a social media person to do all of their stuff.
Honestly, Trey, I'm going to disagree with you because I've had conversations, and I can't speak for all pros, where I've said like, hey, I've noticed this, like, if you want my help, let me know. And there's a lot of resistance. There's only a few that are actually reaching out and getting the help they need. I would say the mindset of most cornhole players is, I just need to buckle up and practice more. I just need to put more time in. There is a mental block to what else it could possibly be that's the barrier.
Now, Meesh, is that 25 and older or 25 and younger giving the resistance? And if you had to pick one of
the
two.
one that I spoke to was in their late 20s, early 30s, in that range. But I've gotten it from multiple. I mean, honestly, all ages. I don't think that even is specific to that. It's just that
I would bet that money solves some of that, right? I really do. I mean, I think that
maybe, but I was even offering some people like, hey, I'll do it for free, like just as like a, you give me a testimonial kind of thing. Like, let me help you get over this block, and then you just say, hey, Meesh, help me get over this block. It's totally free. It benefits both of us, and there's still resistance.
Yeah, see, that's kind of weird. I don't think that's good.
I think it's because there's a belief that like, I think I could fix this in another way. It's not a mental hurt. Everybody says there's a mental game, but then when it comes down to why they didn't win, they don't go to the mental game. So there's this weird like cognitive dissonance happening that would need to be solved, I think, in order for that to move forward. It needs to become more normalized to have that kind of help and to go to that problem solving space, as opposed to just, I just need to put my bags in the hole and just practice more. Like, that problem solving needs to be opened up more in their brains, I think, in my opinion. All right, these two are kind of similar. So Eric Porter and Hunter Thorson. So Eric Porter said, continue to pour support and focus on the grassroots growth from a local regional level. And then Hunter said, growing the game means getting more intermediate competitive and advanced in the door because they are the majority. Incentivizing them to travel or whatever it is. So both of them agree. And I know, Trey, you also agree. And I agree. I think we can all agree that we want to grow that grassroots level.
Yeah, I mean, hit the nail on the head. Like I said, I've been hinting at this. The ACL. I've been working heavily on a 5-year plan, and so we're behind the scenes working very hard to put that together. There's a lot of things that we're changing, and what I'll say this much: there's going to be big changes coming now. Not necessarily big changes. I know that scares some people when I say big changes because they say to themselves, well, you guys have already sometimes made things too confusing. I don't want to keep changing when I just learned things. There are ways that we can attack a problem that doesn't mean changing the format or how systems work. It just changes the tools, the people, things of that nature. A good, maybe an example of that is, we've added a lot of different programs and allocated staff in a particular way, so that the staff wants to, is just doing the job that they were given. But maybe that staff member isn't in the ideal position that they want to be in, right? It doesn't have a passion about something specific, but they have a really strong aptitude to do something else. An example of that would just be, hey, you go here, we move you around, and we kind of revitalize and put more emphasis on what your individual job description is. Maybe there's certain projects that we're working around that don't contribute as much to the grassroots effort, and we replace those with programs that do. And so it's really just about a real deep focus on if we're gonna make the grassroots effort and the grassroots part of the game the most important thing, what are the things that we have to change in order to get there? And internally, we have a long list of things, and some of them we'll get to immediately. Some of them are year 2, some of them are year 3, right? But there is a growing list of ways that we can attack that. So what I would say is, again, I said this a couple times now, if anybody's listening, the one thing that I can say is people clamoring for the grassroots element of cornhole should be the sole focus of the ACL. We've heard that, we agree with that, and we are 100% moving in that direction.
I'm gonna double down on that, Trey, too. We heard about the app, okay? We get it, we know. Like those two things, we heard, we know.
we hear everything. We trust me, I'm on social media as much as it pains me to open Facebook sometimes because it's always something, in my DMs especially. But we hear everything that you want to get done. And so we're excited. I haven't been this excited to put together a long-term plan. And I'll say this much, one more thing. Is that for so long we were growing so rapidly, we didn't do a great job of laying the infrastructure to build to long term because everything was like boom, 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 like learning how to do these things on the fly. Yeah. And this, I can say for the first time in a long time, we're not looking 1 year ahead. We're looking many years ahead. And that's exciting because it allows us to actually say, what are the most important things, right? And if the most important thing is this, in order to be where we want to be in 5 years, that means we have a runway in order to accomplish it. So whether it's events or tech or formats or marketing, social media, like there's a lot of every different department within the company that is the ACL has this newfound focus of making the grassroots effort the focus of making us, a big, sport internationally. So all of that is important.
Very exciting. All right, Wally, I don't know. I think maybe you wrote this one. It says Colt Kenner, but a larger streaming pool would be cool. Think NFL Red Zone. If a game is boring or slow, people are losing interest, switch to another court, showcasing more players at the same time. Was that you, Wally?
It was not, but I love Colt for it. I think this goes back to the theme here. Money. If we could find a way to
wait, I think Colt said he's going to sponsor it, right? Is that what you heard there?
Let's go. I mean, I think he's in my inbox actually asking me for money, so I don't know if that's the case. But no, Chase, Corey, myself, we kind of all brainstormed one day in front of the computer, and we have a great idea for like 8 courts. We presented it to Trey and Fred, and they love the idea too. It's just a matter of when we could actually get there to make it happen and what the sport looks like as a whole. But I mean, it's not like we're ignoring it. It's just we're trying to figure out a way to make it all possible. And as we get further and further down the road, the current equipment we have becomes a little bit more obsolete. You know, technology changes every single year. So then by the time we're able to actually implement this idea, we're going to have to reinvest a lot. And I think that's going to be one of the things that we have to figure out how we can make it happen. But there is a plan in place. We tested it out in Myrtle Beach. I think it was pretty successful.
Yeah, it was cool.
It's just a matter of how we make it work.
All right, last one. Chad Cameron, add bag tracking to side games in the app. It does not have to store the stats. It provide more meaningful practice and allow novice intermediate players the opportunity to familiarize themselves with inputting scores outside of tournament situations. I think we have that, right? I believe, right?
I think he's talking about specifically bag tracking, which is a feature that
as opposed to just up and down. Yeah,
correct.
I got you.
Yeah. So it's a good suggestion. I'll add it to our tech roadmap.
There you go. It's in the tech roadmap, Chad.
I think we kind of talked about this and maybe kind of making it look similar to like a baseball gamecast or football gamecast. But you know, they didn't have like Anthony saying that bags were being thrown like 140 miles an hour or something.
Yes,
we got some tweaks to do.
Yeah, the tech is getting there, but I think that's kind of like the I asked this question and I love that you guys all answer it. I think it's really cool to kind of see your guys' vision, and it's also nice to see that we're in alignment, right? We do want to up our tech and our ability to track stats. We have Anthony Ione in the lab working on that. We do want to focus on the grassroots and update our app. Trey and his team is working on that plan. We do want to upgrade the live streams, and Wally and our team is working on that. So all these things that you guys are saying, we hear you, and it's just not something that can happen overnight. So it's got to happen on the back end first, got to be built, and then what it presented. And I think social media provides this unique opportunity where we can actually like have conversations about it during, which is not typical before social media. You weren't like the NFL wasn't like, hey guys, we're working on stuff. Like, what would you like to see? Like that back before social media. So it's a cool opportunity. All right, time for hot takes. We don't have an open for a few weeks. What direction are you going to go with your hot take, Trey?
Yeah, a big picture for the season. All-time titles race. I told you this is going to be back and forth. I think we're going to have 2 more lead changes by the end of the season. So
okay.
I don't know who's ending up on top, but
conservative though. Do you think that's hot, Wally?
I mean, I'm thinking along the same lines that he is. That's why I was kind of nervous. I thought he was taking my hot take for a second.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, 2 more lead changes. That means Trey would have to get like 2 more before Mark gets 1, and then Jamie would have to get what, 4? Like in theory, it sounds easy, but for there to be clear lead changes, you got to have some movement.
All right, fair enough. All right, Wally, what do you got?
All right, so yeah, that kind of goes right hand in hand with my hot take. We didn't rehearse this at all, but I think that the title holder by the end of the season will have 25 overall titles, and it will be Jamie Graham at 25. So he needs to get 5 more.
Whoa, 5 more?
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty hot.
I'm sorry. Are we doing mild takes here? What are we doing?
No,
it's a
hot take. It's a hot take. I like it.
All right. I got, I don't know if mine's even hot, but I got Zach Aiken winning another open event. So we have what? 2 left? No, just kidding. 1, 2, 3.
2 left.
6
10,
left?
11. 10,
Oh,
11.
10, 11.
Oh, well,
right.
10, and then you have the signatures. Yep.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I got Zach Aiken winning another one. All right, guys, that's all we got time for. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you all next time.